Welcome everyone to Market to Shelf Mastery, the podcast where we talk to food and drink founders and change makers about their transition from market store to retail shelf. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by Paul Turner, who is the founder and owner at Alf Turner. So thank you for joining me, Paul. It's lovely to have you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Before we get started, tell us a bit about Alf Turner. What do you make and where did it all start?
I'll condense it because it's quite a history. Alf Turner was my grandfather. He was the chief butcher instructor based at the RASC in Aldershot. In 1956, he came out of the army, knocked the front window out of his family home and opened a butcher shop in the family home, moved everybody upstairs and had a butcher shop in the family home. Fast forward to 1982, I left school and I got indoctrinated into the family business. And yeah, that was it. I became a butcher as the family dictated. And then in 2009, after winning every award in the UK for sausages from the family shop, I decided after a drunken conversation in the rugby club that I was going to launch a brand and compete with the supermarkets. So hence that's what we did. That was my first foray into that with that crazy idea to launch sausages into UK supermarkets.
And how did that go?
Wow. Yeah, that was a baptism of fire. Totally naive. I had no marketing experience or anything, but I had belief in what we had done and what I'd been taught through the sort of family in the shop. So I believed in the product, and it was just like, right, well, how do I make this happen? And done as much research as possible as you could in those days. So this was in sort of 2009, and a lot of blagging really, and a lot of looking into it and how I do it. And I've done a presentation to a very large retailer just for 2 stores. I could have fulfilled the quota from my shop, and that quickly turned into 100 stores, of which I had no idea on how to do that. I said, yes, of course I can. And yeah.
Yeah, say yes and work it out later. Isn't that the saying? Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
So that was a packet of sausages in effect, branded Alf Turner?
Yeah, branded Alf Turner. I wanted it to reflect what my grandfather had taught his sons, one of which was my dad, and then what my dad had taught us on, the traditional history and heritage of how to make sausages. And, they'd won every award. So, we knew we were doing something right with the product. It was just how I position that to the supermarkets and get that on the shelves. So we launched with 2 different lines, but just slightly prior to that, as I was doing it, I was sat next to a gentleman called Bryn Parry, who was the founder of the Help of Heroes charity as a military function, because I'm based in Aldershot, home of the British Army. And he had just started this little charity called Help of Heroes. And I said, well, the military have been fantastic to my family and our business. I'd like to give something back. So I became probably their first corporate partner. And I said, well, I'll give, a large portion of the sort of profits to the charity. So I became their first sort of corporate partner. So then as we did actually launch, it was sold in support of Help of Heroes.
Wow. So a percentage or an actual amount from every pack sold was donated?
When we first launched, it was because of the Charities Commission, we had to actually do an on-pack donation. So, I just sort of negotiated that. I think the original donation was 20p from every pack went to the Health Heroes charity, of which I had to give them a guarantee when I signed. So, that was... I didn't know how it was going to go, but to use the logos, I had to sign a guarantee with those guys, which I was quite happy to do, and I underwrote that personally. I said, if it doesn't work, I'll pay you anyway. I believed in what I was doing, and I wanted to keep the charity aspect on board. As I say, I've lived in Aldershot my entire life, and the whole family business and everything has been in Aldershot our entire life. So, and obviously Aldershot, where it's the home of the British Army, where I've had many interactions with the forces, and we'd supplied the forces bases and everything. So it just seemed a natural fit for the brand. And as my grandfather was a former military man, being the chief butchery instructor in the RASC, which was the Royal Army Service Corps at the time.
Brilliant. So you had these sausages. They were award-winning by all accounts. They were supported, or money from them was going to help the heroes. You said that you launched in 2 supermarkets.
No. We had
2 stores.
I was looking for 2 stores because that's what I could have provided. But they decided to launch in 100 stores. So I then had to try and find a manufacturer that I could license. So I found a manufacturer. I went and worked with them on how I could take our small process into a larger process without losing the quality and the process that I had actually created or I'd been taught. So yeah, that was a tricky one, but we managed to get that one away. So I had a lot of things to learn. I had to then learn licensing. I had to then learn marketing and how to deliver different things. But the manufacturer at the time was very helpful with all that as well. Yeah, then we launched and we started to do very, very well. And the charity was happy, the supermarket was happy. And then I got a call and we started to export to Malaysia and Singapore, which I thought was quite strange. We just won an award for the best banger in Britain. I had to receive one of those golden sausages at a big award ceremony. And that went online, and a distributor out in Malaysia saw that and he said, well, we want to sell the best bangers in Britain in Malaysia, which I thought was crazy. But yeah, they went for it and we flew packs out there. So yeah, it was progressing along really nicely. And I thought, well, this is easy.
I'm gonna backtrack you a little bit because I know you're now gonna share what happened next. So
yep.
You don't just get into 100 stores. How did that actually happen? So what was the process you went through to get yourself in front of the decision maker, which unlocked 100 stores for you?
As I say, I got introduced to one of the local buyers, and then I decided to do my sort of presentation to them in a different way. I thought I need to do something a little bit different. So at the time, I was supplying the military academy at Sandhurst, and a good friend of mine was the head chef there. So I created tiny versions of all the sausages that I wanted to showcase, and then I put these tiny sausages, and we created tiny meals on every case. So we had mini sausages and we had a mini bangers and mash. We made a little full English breakfast where I used a quail egg. I made little tiny slices of bacon and mini sausages. And we took the buyer to the Military Academy at Sandhurst and sat them in the Queen's Dining Room in Old College. And I done the presentation there. I said, this is my vision. This is what I can do. And this is where I'm. And the guy sat there and went, I've never had a presentation like this ever. And that's when he sort of said to me, he said that 2 stores would not be enough. He said, I think this could do better, and I think we can go to 100 stores. And then it was the question, can you do that? And of course, I sat there and said, yeah, of course I can.
Yeah, of course I can. Yeah. So how did you get him to that meeting? So are you allowed to say what retailer it was?
Yes, I am. Yeah. It was Tesco. And I say,
how did you get the Tesco buyer to a meeting where you then presented him with a mini full English breakfast?
I sort of got. I was doing some work with our local brewery because a lot of the sausages we were doing, we were using a beer, and we'll come on to that later. I was using a beer in our sausages. Traditional ale sausages seem to work very, very well, and it was a local brewery to me. And they had been doing some local stuff with Tesco, and then I sort of bumped into their local buyer, and I said, well, could you introduce me to the buyer of the sausages? And they sort of passed on a detail, and I sort of harangued this buyer for a few months over email until he agreed to see me and then come down and see me. And the guy was absolutely fantastic. He made it a great experience for me as a first. Even, I was so naive. I had no idea what I was doing. And that's being completely honest. I'm a products guy and always have been and always will be. But it was just, I've had faith in what I'd built the brand on of history and heritage from what my grandfather taught me, centered it around Aldershot, home of the British Army, and made absolutely brilliant products. It was a story that I just said from the heart. I had nothing printed. I had nothing written down. I just stood there and spoke and said, this is my vision. I said, I know it's basic and everything, but they just saw something in me and gave me that bit of belief. And then it sort of spiraled from there.
Wow. So fast forward, you've had that meeting. That Tesco's buyer clearly had faith in you as well. Otherwise, he wouldn't have put you into 100 stores. Yeah,
and that's it. We've done a fantastic launch. I said I can bring a lot to the launch. So we've done a fantastic launch in the Aldershot store, which is right, and I had a load of military personnel there. We cooked product outside, and it was fantastic. And then we transferred that over to Sandhurst, and we've done the similar thing in Sandhurst. And of course, Sandhurst is home of the Royal Military Academy, so we had soldiers coming out, cadets coming out of the academy, and it was fantastic. And it really sort of underpinned everything that I had said. I had Garrison radio there, so we broadcast live from the Aldershot store, and everything was fantastic and going swimmingly.
And so tell me about, it's go live day. So your product is landing in store on this particular day. what was going through your head and what were the feelings that you had when you approached the store, went into the store and saw your product live available to buy?
It was a real sort of seminal moment, I'll say, and you know, I took great pleasure in taking my mum and dad. I say, obviously, my father, you know, he taught me, he indoctrinated me in 1982 into the family business, and to take my dad and my mum into a supermarket, and then for my dad to see his father's name on a product, and we used a picture of my granddad as well in his army uniform, so we had a picture of Alf on there, and we've got a little bio story of Alf on the back of every product that we sell now, just to sort of say, well, it's not invented. This was a history and heritage brand that just got taken from an ex-family home that became a business, and then put that, you know, it wasn't a brand I thought of when I created. It was just, the brand was there. I just brought it to life as such. So yeah.
And what did your mum and dad say?
Oh, it was fantastic. They always thought I was a little bit crazy to go and do these things. But I just thought, well, yeah, why not? At some point when I did make that sort of decision, you know, someone said, oh, you wouldn't be able to do that. It's too difficult. To which my response is, yeah, that's sort of red rag to a bull. Don't tell me I can't do something.
Yeah, that's going to make me want to do it and
it's
prove you
make
wrong.
You want to do it, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was it. So, yeah, I get a tremendous amount of pleasure each time of launching a new product and seeing it do well. You know, as with all products, you know, we've launched products. Some products work, some haven't. We've been on shelf, we've been off shelf. It's just part of that process that I think most people in my sort of position will totally understand. It's never easy, but yeah, you get a tremendous amount of pleasure of seeing a product that you've had conceptually and you created, and to see it on shelf, and then to sort of get feedback from customers picking stuff up and feeding back, you know, oh, this is fantastic, it is great. It sort of validates your belief, because sometimes you can over believe in yourself rather than, you tend to sort of get caught up in a little bit of hype. So it's grounding to have the feedback from paying customers that really love the product.
Yeah, brilliant. So tell me what happened next. Did that first listing in 100 stores open doors to other listings? And if so, how and what?
Well, it started to, and then obviously with my failings in how to maintain listings, it's the sort of wheels started to fall off, because I was trying to run with my younger brother the family butchers from the family shop, and also now maintain almost virtually a national listing in the UK's largest supermarkets, which the sort of wheels started to come off a little bit, and I was struggling, and eventually, unfortunately, there was a delist coming my way, which I really didn't know how to deal with. From great success in getting it on there, I thought I'd done the hard part of getting it there, but subsequently now I've learned that it's still hard to get a product on shelf, but it's even harder to maintain that on shelf.
Yeah, so really, really good. Yeah, really, really important. Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of effort, and at the time it was just sort of the sort of real advent of social media was coming about, and I didn't even have a mobile phone at that point in time, so I had no real idea. My kids were telling me, "Oh, Dad, you need to do something on Facebook and this, that, and the other." So yeah, it forced me into my secondary position, because we were delisted, and it was just like, well, I still really believe in the brand, and I still really believe in the product.
Did you have forewarning of that, by the way? Did you see it coming?
Yeah, it was due process. It was just like that, but there were certain mistakes I'd made in the setup, and that I wasn't prepared for, or literally the amount of time and the amount that you have to put in. You know, I was probably too naive that I think, well, you know, it's a bit like the build it and they will come. You know, put it on the shelf and they will buy it. It doesn't happen that easily. You've got to keep momentum going, and you have to keep the noise going, and you know, encouraging people. You can't just rely on people. I've found that most people are customers of habit. Then very few are going into a supermarket for a browse. They're going into certain categories. They're buying what they want. They want to get their groceries in one place. They want to get home and forget about it. So if they buy a certain brand of this and that and the other, that's what they're looking for. And you've got to make them pick yours up. But yeah, half the time they're not. I found that they weren't, or that time they weren't looking, because I had no way of transferring what I was doing.
So you're talking specifically about the marketing of the product once it was on shelf? or in the chiller. Yeah.
This marketing and just, a full public awareness thing that people don't know. Everybody around Aldershot and everything knew what I was doing and this, that and the other. So that was great. I said, but, I'm then going on further afield where they were going, well, Alf Turner or Paul Turner, who are they? Never heard of him. And the story didn't transfer. So, that was a tricky situation, a difficult one and a hard pill to swallow. But, you have to learn these lessons.
So what happened then? So how did you pick yourself up from that? Did you go crying back to the shop and vow never to launch a retail product again? Or did you surge ahead with new ideas and products?
Oh, no, I had to think of a different way, and I needed help and I needed advice, but I didn't know where to access that. And then after learning the lessons that you need to get public awareness and you need to get marketing and you need to get product in front of a lot of people. I'd always been a fan of the Dragon's Den programme, and I'd always watched it. At the time, each applicant or contestant, whatever you want to call them, had to walk upstairs. And I'd sit there with my wife and the kids and we were like, right, okay, what's this one going to be? Is this going to be mad or is this going to be crazy? Is this one going to be good or bad? And we'd sort of make assessments and judgments on that. And I just thought, well, I'd seen it, and I'd seen what Levi Roots had done and what Peter Jones had done with Levi Roots, of taking someone who was essentially in the same position as me, had a product, had passion, enthusiasm, but I'd run out of talent. I didn't know where else to go. So I applied many times for that. Because, as I say, I'd been delisted for 3 months. I was quite well aware that once you get brand positioning, if it's not back in the position, people lose faith and people forget quite quickly. So I had to move quickly. And I just kept applying. And then until I got a little bit of a result and they came back to me. So, then it was go down that process of writing out a business plan and what you've done, what you haven't done, and actually making a correct pitch to try and be featured on the show.
So you went on Dragon's Den.
Yeah.
When did that happen?
Well, the actual anniversary was last week of filming. It was 14 years ago last week that I'd actually filmed. So I went on in the April in 2012. We filmed in the April, but it didn't get screened until the October.
With the dragons, what was the dragon lineup at that stage?
It was a very original one because I only presented to 4 dragons because at the time Hilary DeVay was one of the dragons, but she was actually ill for the day of filming that I did. So I only presented to 4. So that was Duncan Bannatyne, Thea for Peters, Deborah Meaden, and Peter Jones. It was a humbling experience.
Go on. So what? Tell us what happened. So you went. So what did you take? So did you take the original Tesco sausages? What did you take with you?
Yeah, I took the sausages in. I said what I've done and how I'd done it and what I was doing. But it was, number one, I was flummoxed because previously, up until the season that I did, everybody was walking upstairs. So when they did say to me, right, okay, we're going to have you on the show, I was practicing walking upstairs with a tray of sausages. But when it actually gets to it, when I get there, they changed it. You're now walking downstairs. I was just so nervous. I had everything riding on it. I had my business, my reputation, number one, my business and everything. And I'd never really been a figures guy. And I know that was something that they're very, very strict on how they do that. For want of a better word, I was going in there on a wing and a prayer. This is my last sort of chance of rescuing what I'm doing. This is my next option. So I walked downstairs, just sort of fell apart, really, in front of them. I've watched it all the time, and anybody goes on there, I'll take my hat off to them because it is, you've got to be brave because it's such a pressured environment. It's unreal. One that I've never been in before, and I never really want to experience again. But God, I stood there. And I sort of fell apart a little bit. And then on my Sky listing, when it came up, the broadcast, my Sky listing was Nervous Butcher from Aldershot. I was like, oh dear.
So tell us what happened. Like, does it have a happy ending?
Yes, I got a hard time from a few of the dragons. Duncan and Theo gave me a hard time, and Duncan said, I don't get it, I don't get this, I don't get that. He said, so I'm going to launch Bannatyne's Bangers. He said, I think we've just sort of plucked it all out the air. And I said, well, great. I said, I look forward to battling you in the supermarkets to do that. I had focused on Peter because I'd seen what he'd done with Levi and how he had taken that as a concept. I thought, how my business was very mirrored what Levi had done, and obviously, the enigma that is Levi Roots and the Reggae brand. And I didn't sort of throw myself at his feet. It's just like, well, I focused predominantly on Peter and just sort of said the same. This is history, this is heritage. I'm a products guy. I believe in this, and I just hoped that he'd believe in me. And luckily, he did, and we agreed a deal.
Wow! So you got the backing of Peter Jones in the Den.
I did.
What was
indeed.
that? Did you say that was in 2012?
Yes, 2012.
Wow!
Yeah.
Wow! So my question was around like what happened next. So you got delisted from Tesco's. But then you went on Dragon's Den, you got backed by Peter Jones. What happened next? Did you get back in Tesco's or what happened to the brand?
No, we went. I had to then, because with Peter's team, we went and visited a lot of other manufacturers because I think it was going to be, because I filmed in the April and then it didn't get screened to the October. So you're under sort of NDA agreement, licensing agreement, can't talk about it. So I sort of went into hiding for a while because I was a bit loose-lipped at the time. So you
you're scared that you might just go, guess what?
Guess what? And it's such a huge secret to keep. It was so frustrating that all my mates down the rugby club thought I'd just become boring because I didn't go out and I didn't drink anymore. Because I thought if I'll have a few drinks after a game of rugby and that'll be it. It'll be all over. So, the premise of that was that we kept everything very, very quiet. And then I hired the rugby club on the night of the screening. And I just sort of invited all family and friends and everybody. And just sort of, I said, I've got a big announcement to make. I said, but you got to wait till 9 o'clock. And then it was when it was featured on a Sunday. And then I pulled the big screen down at 9 o'clock and put Dragon's Den on. And the BBC were kind enough to put me on first. So everybody's faces when the penny drops as they saw me nervously walking downstairs and absolutely losing it in front of 4.5 million people watch that episode.
Honestly, what a moment. So
yeah, it was great. It was a big relief. I could breathe and I could speak and I could talk to people again rather than sort of hiding indoors.
Wow, that's amazing. So after the Den, were the sausages brought back to life? And what doors did the Den unlock for you?
The noise was unprecedented because obviously by that time I'd sort of got myself a mobile phone. I talked to Peter's team on social media and everything. We launched Twitter accounts and everything, and then it went live. And my Twitter following went from 0 to 10,800 in about 45 minutes. It's just mad. I couldn't get over why my phone was getting red hot and just making lots of noises and melting. I didn't really understand it. And let's say we got listens and we went into Co-op, we went into Asda. And it's... Off
the back of your Dragon's Den appearance?
Well, we launched with the Co-op the day after.
Wow.
It got screened. So we'd done a lot of prep in between the April and the launch night of the programme. And it then became... I had another product. At the time, I had a product.
Can I just ask, did Tesco's come back? I bet they were kicking themselves, weren't they?
No, with I say, I've always gone backwards and forwards with Tesco on various different things, and I've always got a soft spot in my heart for them because they gave me that initial chance.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as with all retailers, retail is based profitability and money, and you have to deliver on that, and if you don't, then you are quite rightly sort of delisted. So we've been in and out of all the major supermarkets in the UK on various different products until you find your footing and you find your feet and you find your customer base, which is always very, very difficult.
Yeah. So the show gets aired. You launch in Co-op. Where else did you say you launched?
We launched in
Asda.
Some selected Asdas, and then Peter's team said to me, this is great. We've got sausages. You can only have so many different types of sausages. Have you got anything else? And I said, well, yeah, I do have another product which we'd made in the shop and everything, but bizarrely was called a Dragon Egg. It was a chili infused Scotch egg that was created before I'd done Dragon's Den. We'd started to make Scotch eggs in the shop and selling them through the hot counter. And I was at a food exhibition one time, and I found a chili sauce called Dragon's Blood. And I'd always been fascinated with chilies, and this stuff was like thermonuclear war.
It sounds it.
I had to buy a bottle just for a bit of fun, and we had a bit of fun with it. And then I put some in sausages and sold them in the shop. And then I added it to where it was in the sausage meat. I made an egg, and I thought, well, it was about the sort of time of Game of Thrones, so I thought, well, I'll call it a dragon egg. So I made this chili-infused egg and called it a dragon egg. And I sort of said to Peter's team, I said, well, I've got this dragon egg, and they sort of said, oh no, that won't be any good. That won't really work, and you're playing too much on the dragons thing. And I'd done the exploration, and it was just sort of dismissed. And then I got a message that Peter wanted to try one of these dragon eggs. So I sent some up, and he said, these are brilliant. Let's go for it. So then I had to work with the producer that was manufacturing the sausage at the time. Luckily, they had a Scotch egg factory, and I convinced them to go with it in some limited stores. And this is where I found the sort of power of the social media, because it was given a certain amount of stores within the co-op at the time, a short amount of time to make it work. I didn't have any real budget to play with it, so I had to think. I was looking at this new thing, social media, and especially on Twitter as it was at the time, and I was like, well, how can I do it? So I decided to launch it, by the time we were going to launch it, we were launching it in sort of April time around St George's Day. So I come up with this cunning plan of, after watching Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I got some pictures of Mr. Jones, and I went to the factory and put some pictures of Mr. Jones in the bottom of the packaging of the said dragon egg. And at the time, I bought some vouchers off of one of his companies, which was Red Letter Days at the time, of experience vouchers. So then I just went onto Twitter, and I put, become St. George and find the dragon, and tagged the co-op, tagged Health for Heroes, tagged Peter Jones, and it went crazy. Because I think we were in 100 stores at the time, because everybody's running into it sort of exploded, because I think Peter retweeted it, and he had 1 million followers on Twitter. Help for Heroes retweeted it across their platforms, which was a lot of platforms, and then it just went crazy. I think everybody was running into the co-op store saying, have you got a dragon egg? Because they could win this £50 Red Letter Days voucher and try this spicy new Scotch egg. And it went mad, absolutely mad. To which I ended up with the co-op tweeted back at me, at Alf Turner, what's a dragon egg?
But it stems back to your creativity around that very first pitch that you delivered to the Tesco buyer, where you wanted to do something different to get noticed or get attention, or the eyes on your product, really.
That's it. I mean, as I found out, I said, just having a great product is not enough. You've got to back it up with everything else. I say, with my first listing with the sausages with Tesco, I had a great product, but I didn't have enough else to back it up to sustain keeping people going in and picking it up. So I had to think inventively and crazily. And then that spiraled all sorts of mad things. I mean, so I now hold, unofficially, I hold the world record for the highest Scotch egg. So I sent one into space, and we reached 79,500 feet. And we streamed that live. At the time, Elon Musk and the Amazon guy were racing each other with their various rocket programs. So I thought, well, I'll chase them down. So I'd done it with some ex-forces personnel that I'd sponsored, and they were doing some high altitude stuff in New Mexico. So they said to me, if we can ever help you, let me know. So I said, well, can we stick a Scotch egg in space? And they went, yeah, I couldn't see any reason why not. So we stuck this Scotch egg in underneath a balloon over the desert in New Mexico.
As you do.
We hit 79,000 feet. And that got a lot of noise, and that created a lot. And then subsequently we went on and we done 175 mile an hour in a McLaren, going down a runway. We got the dragon egg featured in the King's birthday fly past. So we were in the Spitfire, the Hurricane, and the Lancaster. And then we topped it off, and we have the world's officially the fastest Scotch egg. We went in the F-35 Lightning fighter aircraft, and where four jets went up, and 4 Scotch eggs went in, and they all hit Mach 1 out over the sea.
Wow.
So I went to RAF Marham. I dressed up as the hero, the Help for Heroes mascot bear in their RAF one, and I walked the line of the aircraft like Top Gun with the fighter pilot, and I had to hand him a Scotch egg. Because they were on a training mission, so they weren't doing a special mission, they were doing a training mission, so we got it added in. But he said, in the briefing, he said, I got told that I was going to get presented with a Scotch egg off a giant teddy bear, and I had to reach Mach 1.
Yeah. Just an average shift, really.
But yeah, it's just the normal thing. But I've done so many different things with the military and military personnel, and just to highlight what I do and how we donate back and what we do with the charity. And just sort of fast forward into today on the charity part, that we've now actually, through sales of our products, I've donated £323,000 to Help the Heroes.
That's amazing.
Which for me is a fantastic achievement. I mean, I've met a lot of the people that we've actually helped, that have been helped via the donations that we made through the charity, and I've done some personal work with them, and I just find they're just so very awe-inspiring and very unassuming people that just don't quite understand how they're viewed by the general public.
Okay, it's amazing. So tell us so I've got a packet, look, of your Dragon's Fury premium chili pork crackling. I've actually got one that was in a charity hamper box that I acquired recently. So
that was via Liam, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's clearly not a Scotch egg. So tell us, what does your product range look like currently?
Well, I'd say it just seemed a sort of natural progression. I wanted everything to sort of focus around butcher style products, and pork scratchings was the next lead on into the product, I went into pork scratchings, and then subsequently into pork crackling. And as it stands at the moment, I think we sell just on about 1 million bags a year now of pork scratchings or pork crackling as a combined thing. So they're mainly in the wholesale and through wholesalers, because it's a very difficult one, I find, to transfer to retail, even though I'm just starting to experience a bit within the retail. But in the wholesale market and in the pub market, I really sort of pushed it, and there was a lot of traction with people in pubs. It's obviously an iconic pub snack, and it resonated with the military personnel and everything. As I say, it's all displayed with Help Heroes on the front, and we made it another fantastic product, which I think was a sort of a category of class leading product in that. So yeah, that carried on. And my new advent is that obviously if they're buying pork scratchings in pubs, they might as well buy beer. So last year I ventured into doing beer as well. So we've matched our pork scratchings with a beer. So I've got the Hero IPA, which I've just launched that a few weeks ago into Waitrose.
Wow!
So we're
non-stop, aren't you?
I try to be.
You're a prolific.
So we got 100 Waitrose stores with the Hero IPA, and I was a bit late to the market with it because we were perfecting the recipe with the brewery. I work with a company called the Hogsback Brewery, and we've just launched the Hero IPA, but as an alcohol-free version. Obviously, there's a lot of things attached to mental health and alcohol with veterans and everything. So I wanted to have that alcohol-free option as well. So yeah, so that's just coming out. So I'm just going around trying to present to the supermarkets and whoever would want to see us now with an alcohol-free version.
Brilliant. Well, I've got a question to ask you on that at the very end, but I've got a couple of questions that I'd like to ask or pose to you before we wrap up. So I was going to ask you, what's the one thing you wish you'd known earlier or sooner when launching into retail? I think you mentioned already about this, maintaining a listing, or what it takes to maintain a listing. But is there anything else that you think, I wish I'd known then what I know now, and how that would have helped or changed the direction? I don't know.
I think there's two ways that I can look at it. I think probably the first way is I'm glad I didn't know then, because I think the way I learn lessons is the hard way. And I think if you're learning a lesson the hard way, and it's giving you a knockback, it gives you resilience to step forward and come again. So I don't think I would want to know any more than I did at the time.
Right.
So I think that's it. Where I was unprepared, I had to learn lessons very, very quickly.
Okay.
And on the hoof. And yeah, I can understand for someone else, if I was advising them, I'd say that do as much research as possible, look at the marketing, look at this, but that's coming from hindsight. But at the time for me, I didn't have that hindsight. So I was just forced into a space where I had to learn very, very quickly what was required and what could be done. I could have just rolled over the first time and given up, but it was just like, no, I can't do that. And obviously, then working with Peter Jones's team, they were so very helpful in, this is proper business model, and this is strategy, this is where we look, and this is how we learn. So I just became a sponge, and I just wanted to learn and absorb as much as possible.
Okay, brilliant. So learn from your mistakes. Learn is the key message, which, well, I think, and also, this bit around tenacity as well. So not giving up. You said you could have rolled over, but you quite clearly didn't. You came back, and you came back stronger. So, that's a real testament to you and, your resilience and your tenacity and your belief in your product and wanting to make it a success.
You do have to make mistakes, though. I've met many people sort of on this, without using the sort of analogies, on this crazy journey that have been in sort of similar positions. Every single one of them has made mistakes. And I think if you have any advice for any sort of founders or anybody, you're going to make mistakes, but don't beat yourself up over them. Learn from them. If you don't learn from it, you'll make the same mistake again, and then that's foolish. So make a mistake, learn from it, don't make that mistake again, and you move on. And then it's like, what's going to be the next one? Yeah. And that tenacity, it's never been easy. It's not easy. There's pressure, you've had stress, you've had this and that and the other. But at the end of the day, I get a hell of a lot of pleasure out of proving someone wrong if they've said that won't work, or then, taking my dad. Unfortunately, we lost my mum last year, but to take my dad into the supermarket and he's still seeing a new product with his father's name on it. So it's his legacy that's carrying on that, and I get a tremendous amount of pleasure out of that and satisfaction, saying, well, my grandfather's legacy and the sort of Turner name and legacy lives on through products that go on the shelf and that I'm happy to go on. I'll never have a product on there that I don't believe in.
Yeah, it's important. Yeah.
You get a lot of people that sort of say, oh, we can do this and we can do that. And I was like, well, that's not how I work. I've been to every sausage factory I've ever worked with, every Scotch egg, every factory that I've ever worked in. I've been there. I've gone on the factory floor and I've worked in every sort of environment and put my input into that product.
Yeah. So I suppose what we're saying is accept that failure is going to happen.
It's part of the process.
Exactly. And it's an important part of the process, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, because you go into it, wide-eyed, and you're so euphoric and everything when you land that listing. But even if you sort of go through LinkedIn and you see new listings and people, they're so chuffed and everything, and I get a tremendous amount of pleasure seeing people do that. And it's like, well, now, and they're all more qualified than me now, because on the bottom of each post you tend to read, and now the work starts. Yeah. It's true. It takes a lot of work to get there, but they're all queued up on the fact, because I think the information, especially with those sort of different platforms and sort of podcasting like we're doing now, there's a lot more that you can learn. Whereas when I did it in 2009 and whatever into 2012, that wasn't available, or it wasn't available to me. Yeah, so you're right. Use the resources that you have available. So you mentioned that you have just launched a range of ales. Yeah. So we like to think that there's people listening that can influence, make change, help you along the way. Who's on your wish list? So if your ideal next customer is listening, who is it, and why are they important to you in terms of getting that product on their shelves? It's very difficult to sort of pinpoint each one, but I'd say Waitrose have been fantastic with me. They've given me the chance with the Hero IPA, and I want to expand that. And I think each supermarket will accept that you want to expand because you need to grow. Because I give a direct donation from every product of the beer. It's a matched fund donation as well that I give to them, and that's relevant on the bottle and the can. But there's always a strong tie for me back to Tesco. And who wouldn't? They're the biggest out there, and my rate of sale is based on volume. So, and the more volume I can sell, the more I can donate back to the charity. Yeah. So the growth of the charity, and I know that they've got some partnerships with Help Heroes. Have got some partnerships with Tesco, and Tesco do a lot within the Armed Forces community, and they've sponsored Armed Forces Week and all sorts of different bits and pieces. So But I would be happy to present to anybody that is interested to see the products. I'd say there's a whole piece, the sobriety. There's a whole piece on the low and no, as you've seen the growth in that category now, and because there's a whole mental health piece attached to alcohol-based products and everything, and there's a whole piece with veterans. So I come up with from sort of two angles as that it hits in two different ways. But
it's coming from a very good place, very, very good place.
Yeah, and it promotes awareness and it promotes all sorts of things. So I've done some stuff with some influencers, and I'm looking at lots of different influencers now to sort of collaborate with those people and just sort of give a message like, you can go out to the pub. There is a different sort of culture within drinking now. You can go out to the pub, and there's not this stigma that you're having a low on no, and that's hence why you've seen the boom in that category growing. And I've had some great fun, developing the beers that we've done, and just as much fun developing the alcohol free.
Brilliant. So Tesco's, if you're out there and you're listening, tap him up. He wants to have a conversation with you, because more volume means more donations to help more people. And also this would be a true full circle moment from where it all started 2012. So yeah, let's go back. But thank you so much for joining me today, Paul. In the show notes, I'm going to put, you're going to cringe at this, I shall put the link to your star appearance on Dragon's Den.
Okay, thanks for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'll also put, people can connect with you, so I'm guessing that's going to be on LinkedIn, and also a link to where they can find your products and how they can view the amazing work that you've done thus far with Help for Heroes. On our website, there's I've got store locators and I've got pub locators on the website.
Brilliant. So if your local pub, if it's got our beer or if it's got our scratchings, or store locator, it gives you all the Waitrose stores and all the other places that are selling scratchings. So
amazing.
All the information is on there. So
brilliant. So we know exactly where to find your amazing products. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.